I know we're just chatting today, Holger, and we haven't prepared anything really. We've been busy with New Year and everything like that, but I was just wanting to wonder if you'd like to talk about the Anunnaki. Do you think whoever came here, they came from, was it a Stargate, or did they land in some sort of spacecraft, do you think?
Andrew, there's two sides that I view on that. It depends which approach people want to use, whether you want to use a flat earth system or globe system, and they both tie up. As I've said, there's values in both of them. But yes, it's the Stargate system. I like to go with a Stargate system. That's the other, or the wormhole, or the Stargate that you're talking about. So no, it is correct what you're saying, going through that avenue.
So you recognise someone did come here in about 200 BC, about that time, and cause a lot of trouble, and maybe there was a nuclear war about that time as well?
Andrew, life has been on this earth for a really, really long time. I mean, we're talking 200 million years ago that we've already got life, and it does go back even further.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these recent wars you're talking about, do you know anything about the mud flood?
No, but a lot of people have commented on that mud flood. Can you explain that? I don't know what it is.
The mud flood basically is a reset of human civilization. We assume that the human has been here. We know he's been here for 6,000 years, but there's resets within our culture, our species, whatever you want to call it, on a regular basis. Right. And the mud flood, basically what happened is they used technology to liquefy the soil, liquefy the earth. And you'll see buildings have sunk down, and it was a way of resetting civilization so that we could get rid of the older generation or the adults and forget the information from the past. So it was a reset to help us forget.
Who did that? Was that the Anunnaki?
Yeah, you can talk the Anunnaki. I mean, we can always target them. I mean, we can always finger them and say, yeah, they're the ones who set it. But I don't believe it's also negative where they're just against our species. I believe it is for a reason. I believe it has positive points why it is done. So I don't believe everything is just like this really bad news story. And the last mud flood occurred about 180 years ago, where it reset everything. And you can go and look at this on the internet and just go and do a bit of research. It's logical what they're saying, and it's nice what they're saying, to go and have a look. Okay, what's happening? What actually went on as recent as 180 years ago?
Now, people ask me why there was fighting these groups of aliens, if you like, and why they came to Earth, why they were still fighting. I mean, this goes back thousands and thousands of years, doesn't it? I mean, I can't explain why they're fighting. Do you understand why they're fighting?
Infighting in different species. Remember, when we talk of the Bible, let's just go to the Bible. When we talk of our Creator in the Bible is called Elohim. Elohim, in actual fact, is a plural. It's not a singular word. So it means creators, not creator, not singular. Elohim is actually a group of people. And then they had their infighting, where obviously, as with any group, you'll always get some people who want more of their agenda pushed across and less of the other. So it's just a natural thing worldwide. Look at one of the last videos where I talked about the Anunnaki and the Pleiadians, with that positive and negative, to create this duality. Now, a duality is going to have a push me and a pull me effect the whole time. That you can call a war on a much deeper level. So yeah, the wars will never end. We call it Star Wars. Star Wars, I mean, what are Star Wars all about? In astrology, we'll look at how these angles of the planets form a negative angle, or what we call an aspect, a negative angle to each other, or a very positive angle. And generally, there's 3 negative angles in astrology, and two positive angles. So you'll see there's more wars than there's actually peace or harmony.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Britain's been at continuous war for the last 1,000 years, I think. So would you say the Anunnaki are in control now? Like basically any wars that are now are just infighting between the Anunnaki. The Pleiadians seem to have disappeared, don't they?
No, the Pleiadians. No, the Pleiadians are here, but there's not just the Pleiadians themselves. There's a group behind the Pleiadians that date even further back than the Pleiadians. They come from Lyra. That group, the Pleiadians came after them, and they've got different agendas. There's not just one group of Pleiadians. There's different groups of Pleiadians. Pleiadians are also, you get some nasty Pleiadians, but generally they're considered the good guys. But then you have a look at where they come from, and then you look at that agenda, and then it goes even further back, and then you start having a look, okay, so what's the agenda? And that's where you start realizing we come from a non-form world. So it's when we come into the material world, once matter gets created, there's always going to be this push me, pull me. Outside of matter, there's more harmony. But within the realm of matter, there's always this double agenda, this two agenda going on.
I'm interested about that sex magic you was talking about. Can you explain a bit of that about that? You don't have to explain everything, but we can do a video about that. What does that have to? How does that work? Is it the Kundalini or anything like that? Is it?
Yeah, sure. The Kundalini is definitely in there. When you have a look at the point of sex, why or where the real power lies, what we tend to do, we always think it's about this is the bottom line. We always think it's about the actual orgasm. Now, if you can have sex without the orgasm, in other words, where you don't actually release, what actually happens, you start raising your Kundalini much faster, much easier, and you actually transcend. You start going into other dimensions. You start reaching other altered states. And what happens is we're so used to just having orgasms all the time that we don't. We bring it down to the material plane, the lowest plane of existence. Whereas if you can keep it within and you don't actually orgasm and you start elevating your consciousness, what happens is you start actually activating higher and reaching or accessing higher dimensions. So that's the bottom line of sex magic.
It's like in the old days when they took over the druids and everything like that, and then they covered it. They learned all the information off them and then covered it all up, didn't they? Made it out to be bad and made them out to be bad. But they use all the druid sacrifices and things like that, and
basically infiltrated the druids, the same as the Phoenicians and the Babylonians. They basically infiltrated the druids. They then took all their information, then killed off those people, and then mastered it or used that information for themselves.
Is this also what the Kazakhs did with Judaism?
Look, the Khazars are a very warring nation. When you have a look at what the two agendas, the first agenda, let's just start with the first agenda. The first agenda is what we call the farmer's lifestyle, which is in harmony with nature. So that's where society or civilization started. It was very much in touch with nature. That's where we worshiped the moon and the feminine goddess. We focused a lot on that. That was the original culture. And then what happened is the masculine took over, or the masculine warring energy took over, which is the Khazars, what you're talking about now, where they then brought in that solar deity, that masculine identity. And that came about as a control system. So yeah, originally it was much more peaceful, going towards the feminine aspect of our higher self, and then we've lowered it down, or just through the ages, through the through time, through the agenda that's supposed to be with somebody else who's setting up the energy. It's now become a more masculine identity, a more masculine hierarchy system. So yeah, it's a control system.
The church in the Council of Nicaea, what happened there? Because they started changing all the information and taking things out of books and leaving books out of the Bible and things like that. So was there something to do with that?
Control, so to take information away, but then to only give us what we need to know, so that we can basically be a commodity. But if somebody's really interested and they start getting more in touch with the higher stuff, Andrew, you will find it yourself naturally. It's not, yes, you could say it's hidden. The information's out there, but it's not, we're always looking for it in the physical world. But if you start accessing these higher planes, you'll realize that information comes to you through other avenues other than the material world. And that's how we can actually reclaim or find that information again.
Do you believe in these barriers, what you find, these invisible barriers? Like, I did a video about in Romania how they found like a cavern in a mountain. And obviously I can't speak the language, so I don't know exactly what they're saying, but it seems legit because there's people, there's scientists there getting interviewed, and there's people on TV, on their national TV channels. And then you hear about this invisible barrier, what they can't get across, can't get through. I mean, you hear the same about the Baltic Sea anomaly, about every time they get over it with camera stuff or diving equipment, everything seems to stop working. So what is it, some sort of self-defense mechanism, what they've got built into them, or what's that technology that causes that?
Yeah, that's all to do again with EMF, same as the gravity principle. Andrew, you use crystals. Those use crystals. Crystal energy is used a lot in that magnetic EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. So there's a lot to do, and EMF requires crystals as well. EMF is not just simply a magnet and a coil. It also has to do with crystals. You need the combination of the different things in order to generate that force, because you need different dimensions of or sources of power, of magnetism, of electricity. You need different things to create an interdimensional.
So I think I understand what you mean. Yeah, I understand. So like, basically you have to turn your body into a resonator, if you like. So say like you've got a radio and you didn't have an aerial on it and you just had it sat there, it wouldn't do anything, would it? As soon as you put an aerial onto that radio, you can pick up frequencies and everything like that. So your body's ready to pick up frequencies, but you need to put something in your body that picks up the signals. Is that right? Or do you have to do something with your body to change the chemical makeup of your body?
There's two approaches. There's the physical approach, and then there's the psychological or mental approach. It comes down to the blood. Everybody's involved with the blood. Everybody's interested in the blood. The blood is our EMF. Mm-hmm. If you have a look what's actually going on with our blood is made up of 4 different parts. And when you have a look how the blood actually works in these different ratios, the idea is to balance all the different parts of the blood, all 4 of them, to try and get them as close to equal. So by nature, we're born where we have more plasma or we have more white blood cells. So you want to get an equal ratio of all of these. So you want to get your plasma right. You want to get your red blood cells right. You want to get your white blood cells right. And then you want to get your platelets right. When you harmonize those, you then activate your own DNA. You activate your own EMF. So it's done all in the blood. That's why all these blood, everything is blood. You'll see a lot of these philosophies and these mystery schools and these weird guys. It's always blood.
Well, Hitler, people don't realize blood, wasn't it? Hitler. That's all. Yeah. All his deal was searching for different blood types.
You can adjust or change your blood by. Hippocrates actually wrote the whole thing on the blood. We've used this for now thousands of years, and he's actually written how the blood divided into these 4 different parts. If you can harmonize them, you will actually, those are what you're talking about, to reach EMF, to reach an altered state, to elevate your DNA, to change your consciousness. So you can approach it from a psychological way, where you actually start developing different, you don't become schizophrenic, but you start taking on or bringing in aspects of yourself, personality traits that you don't realize that you are, to harmonize it. So we want to balance out these 4 different personality types. Hippocrates called them the 4 humors. So that's the one approach. That's from a psychological approach, if you want to do that, mental approach. The other way is to also then do it through the physical food. So if you realize that certain parts of the blood require more of certain vitamins and minerals, you can then, where you've got a lack, you can then up those minerals in your body to also bring your blood back into balance. And nobody's born with a perfect balance of blood. We all have different ratios. But the thing is to try and get it as close to normal, and then, Andrew, the magic starts happening.
Something I've always wanted to understand as well, the people who control the earth, are they taking orders from someone from a different...
Yes.
So when they go through Stargates, are they going through to get their orders and whatever, and then come back and follow out whatever they was told?
Yes, orders is one, but they're also going to go and get knowledge, because the Anunnaki are not in control. The elite are not in control of this planet, and a lot of us are like always blaming the elite and pointing fingers at the elite. The elite are not actually in control. They are also subject to the, as you say, the Anunnaki, the Pleiadians, or those other world species, civilizations. Now, what happens is that the elite has to put certain systems in place through economy, through the monetary system. They have to put certain systems in place so that energy, if we look at it all on an energy level, what happens is those other worlds need to have Earth run at a particular or in a certain direction. And for that to come about, the elite and then the deeper worlds have to put in certain systems. So they will feed the elite the systems, who in turn impose it on us, so that the entire energy of this planet can move in a certain direction, so it doesn't lag behind. So it becomes easier, not as dramatic and not as violent, as nasty, when you realize that it's just running to plan.
I see that. Do you know what the person at the top of the pyramid's called? What do we call him? Is he human? Is he from somewhere else? I've heard him called Pindar before. Is that the person who controls everything?
Pindar, yeah. You want to go to what they call source. So, whatever people call source in their different philosophies, in their different languages, the Bible even talks of as chaos. Chaos does not mean like we understand in English, where it's just a riot, a mess. That's not at all what chaos means. That's the wrong English translation of chaos. So chaos is your source. Chaos is actually the origin or the source of everything. Why it's called chaos is, if you can imagine, in your computer, let's take a computer. We're all we're using computers right now with us. Computer has all the possibilities inside that hard drive, inside the chips. It's got all the possibilities. Now, if you try to define the possibilities of what your computer could do, you just have a look and everything's in there. Now, we could call that chaos because it's in all different places, but it's not chaos. There is order in it. Depends what you want to extract. You can extract anything you want. So that's the chaos or the void or the non-form, where nothing exists. So it's on a non-physical level. When you look at it on a non-physical level, this mishmash, I mean, our thoughts, you can be thinking sometimes 2 things at the same time. You can be thinking back on a holiday, and then you can also get an inspiration at the same time. So you can have 2 coming at the same time. You can call that a mental war, a spiritual war. You can call that chaos. But it's not chaos as in negative. It's just opportunity. Anything's available.
Yeah.
So that's the ultimate. And then it comes down into a spirit level. Into a spirit level, then that's where you're going to get the different, let's call it, you've got a specific agenda that you now want to reach. And then in that agenda, you've got now, let's call it different rays that pass off it. Those different rays would have different flavors. So you can see how it just keeps splitting or else going into more and more different dimensions.
Mm-hmm. I know I just keep asking you random questions, but it's just a kind of roundup for the end of the year. I get a lot of comments and I don't know how to answer them really, because everything I learn is out of a textbook. So, you know, I can't really answer anything that's not out of the textbook, you know. So I know you're a very wise person and you have learned a lot in your life. So I just like to throw these questions out. I mean, I know they're quite random, but here's another one. Was white people and black people created by the same person?
No. They were definitely created by different people. I explain to some people when they go, particularly, let's look at the African people. The African countries or cultures further up north in Africa, particularly when you go to the Nigerian people, all up north there. Now, in Nigeria, you've got two basic tribes. And the one main tribe is called the Igbo, I-G-B-O. Now, whenever you're in South Africa, whenever you'll see these black churches, and they're in large numbers, the members there, you'll see that generally you'll have the local blacks from South Africa who come here, but then you'll have within those churches, sometimes you'll have in the hierarchy, you'll have the Nigerian people in there. And for whatever reason, they don't always realize it, but subconsciously, the local black people will somehow be more submissive without even trying, without doing it consciously. They are more submissive to the Nigerian people. Now, we assume it's because of technology and all that. No, it's not. It's because the Igbo are the creators of the black people in Africa. So they are actually subservient to their creators. And they're doing this on a subconscious level. So yes, we've got different beings who created different species, different races.
So can I ask one more question? The Ige, who the Anunnaki mentioned, the Ige, their first creation, wasn't there? Do you reckon that's the Nigerians that you talk of, and then the Nigerians created other blacks?
No, this is where I like to go to astrology. Astrology talks of the seven gods. In Red Indian philosophy, they talk of the seven grandfathers. It's all the same thing, our ancestors. However you want to describe our ancestors, but astrology will specifically tell you there's seven. The Red Indians will tell you there's specifically seven. So when you have a look at these seven different gods, they had to come together. And through them, they created all these different species. So you would have back on those levels, two who came together and created a specific species. Another two came and created another species. But in actual fact, you need to look at them as a clan. Remember, right in my first video, I talked about these different clans. And they actually group together, and different ratios of the seven in all their possibilities will create different species. So you've got the original gods who are not mixed.
But they mix their DNA with primates on Earth. Is that what happened? So that's why we all look different, because we're made from different primates.
No, we don't come from primates.
Right.
Primates are all the primate family, the different primate species are all created, but we don't come from primates. This is where I like the Red Indian philosophy. The Red Indian philosophy says, I acknowledge my relative, but he is not my ancestor. Now, the Red Indians talk about this stuff. So if that helps you also possibly put that across a bit better, that we do not come from monkeys. Monkeys are related to us, but we do not come from them.
Right. So how was we created? Was we created with DNA, just DNA of these gods? Why do we look different? Or do we look the same as the gods?
No, no. We look at life and we want to stick with life on the physical level. But I like to go to EMF all the time. EMF, the light source of everything, the lifeblood of everything, the source, the energy of everything. When you create an energy, like when you create music, music is sound, but yet it can translate into a physical form. So when you do cymatics, where you'll put sound onto a card where there's either metal filings or sand, when you put sound through, it can generate a physical different shape. But the point is, before the cymatics or this physical form, you have something called sound, which is metaphysical, non-physical, and it will generate a more subtle energy. It will generate a different energy. So people keep on wanting to think they're just purely physical. They are not purely physical. We are 4 different beings in one. We've got 4 different parts in ourselves. And on those different parts, your energy, or let's call it your soul, according to your soul's makeup, it will manifest or generate a particular look. So your look wasn't created by them. The look was created by us through our soul. Our soul has got a certain frequency or vibration. When it comes down to the more gross planes, it then manifests of different features. So they didn't create our features, they created our energy, which manifests into its different features.
Right.
It's quite a thing to get your head around, because we're so busy thinking when we make babies, we see, oh, well, it looks like me. But what about the personality? The personality can sometimes, one person could say, oh, but this person looks like this because they know that person as a certain, let's call it a judge. And then you'll get the other one where we go to a disco and you'll meet a DJ and you say, oh, well, he's got this energy. But they could actually be the same person, but because they put on a different form, a different cladding, now suddenly you say, but I don't recognize him. He's a different person. It's the same thing. If you think about it, the Anunnaki comes through and the Pleiadians come through. Now let's just talk. We generally accept that the Pleiadians are positive and the Anunnaki are negative. It's not cut and dried like that, but generally, let's say positive and negative. Now, if we're on a planet of duality in the material world, how can this planet be going through such gross stuff if we're inherently good? So you have to realize that there's the bad agenda, bad people who are actually doing their thing. And this is where it gets very interesting. We assume the bad people are not going to elevate themselves. I don't know who said that. I don't know where that idea comes from. If we all come from source, we all come from the origin, we all come from the same place, and then it splits itself into good and evil. So you'll get unity up the top. It splits itself into positive and negative, right and wrong, good and bad, day and night, hot and cold. Maybe you want to look at it, black and white, whatever. The agendas have to be pushed for each one. They have to push their separate agendas. So you can't be a good person and you're going to control the bad people, and you can't be a bad person, you're going to control the good people. We've got the mishmash. So you've got the people who are born into the Anunnaki side who are going to push their agenda. But without that push me, pull me, we'd become static. The world, the universe would become static. And once something's static, it just dies or falls into itself. So we've got this continual push me, pull me, this continual war between the two sides. So no, you get people who are inherently born evil.
But it seems to me like they inherently feel like they own us. Like this is the way they get through all the evil ways of what they do. They believe that they own us and they can do whatever they want with us, if you like. Because if you create something, if you copyright something or anything like that, even if it's a rare poodle or something, you still own it. If you bred that. And I think in a way this is what it's all down to. Even if you look in the religions and it tells you that we own them, and a pregnant a non-believer is no better than a dog and stuff like that. So I do think even if you read the religions and everything, they're telling them that they own us and basically to do what they want with us. So unless you stop that sort of teaching, you know, that you can't own a human, then this is where slavery comes from. I mean, the British Empire outlawed slavery, did a lot to stop it, and then 4 years after, communism rose up and started. So they find a way around it, you know, and then just name it something else, and it seems like it's never going to end.
Slavery has never stopped. If you have a look at, you go to work, do you have a choice? I mean, you must work for the boss, you must do his agenda, you must work exactly what they want, you must work the hours that they want, you must work the days that you want. I mean, we used to, in our lifetime, we used to work a 5-day week. Now we work a 6-day week or 5.5-day week, and even sometimes a 7-day week. Yeah. You're telling me slavery stopped? Slavery is still very much alive.
No, it's getting worse, it seems. And it seems like the Anunnaki are getting more control. Or whoever you want to call the people who are pushing slavery. I just see it this way. There's people pushing slavery and there's people pushing freedom. Whichever side you want to call them, whatever you want to call them. But
they own or have rights to our material bodies. But they do not have rights on your soul or your spirit. So, as long as we believe ourselves to be physical or material, you will be a slave. It's helping the whole agenda of the planet at the moment is being pushed in such a degree that so many people are wanting to leave. They want to just get rid of their bodies. They want to commit suicide. They want to get off this world. They want to get away. What are we saying? Indirectly, we're saying we don't want to be in the material world, and that is good. If we can get to that point where we actually realize, okay, so if we don't want to be in the material world, where do we want to be? Do we think we're going to swap it for another material world? Well, guess what? Same story. So the trick is to say, all right, if I can go beyond the material world and exist on a higher plane, now you start finding freedom. That's where freedom exists. Freedom does not exist on any material plane, because no sooner you're born into that plane for, like here on earth, we're here now for 6,000 years. I assume most people understand the concept of reincarnation, where the soul keeps coming back. While the soul keeps coming back to this earth and you keep getting the same material body lifetime after lifetime, you are a slave to that system because you've been born into a material system. But if you can exit and step out of it and start realizing, but I am the soul, and this is why it's so horrendous, the energy at the moment, is to try and help us push and say to people, stop believing you're human. I said in one of my previous videos, it's extremely detrimental to believe yourself to be a human. If you believe yourself to be a human, you will never escape slavery. You have to believe that your soul, that your spirit, and go higher up. Right. Then you'll find freedom. But in the material world, no. Whether you're born into the Pleiadian environment, whether you're born into the Anunnaki environment, on those planes, there's a structure, a system. And those systems, you are bound to follow that system on the material or the plane of matter. That's called slavery.
I hear there's another faction out there. There's like two major factions, but then a lot of them split and made a rebel faction.
Are being formed. Those third factions are being formed right now amongst the humans, because what's happening is people are seeing. Look at when we vote for our government. You've either got side A or side B. Generally, there's always two, not really three. There's generally two. We're learning that it doesn't matter which side you choose; they're both not pro the human agenda, if you want to call it that. So what the result is, we're developing these. They're creating, the system is automatically creating these factions. And these factions are causing people to say, I choose neither A nor B. I'm going to become my own system. And then you try and shed all your material limitations. Once you shed your material limitations, what's actually happening, you're elevating yourself in consciousness, in mind, and you're actually going to a higher plane. So yes, the function of a faction is to raise your consciousness. Yes.
Do you know You hear about the Admiralty Law, don't you? That they own us through the Admiralty Law. Have you heard of that? Something
Of
to
the
do
sea.
with the sea, or something to do with the navy.
Yes.
And when we're born, it's something to. Do you know that? Do you understand? I've read it before, but I can't. Off the top of my head, I can't understand it. I can't remember it. But is that not
Who's
nothing? Because the navy would also include spaceships, wouldn't it? Or if you like that, like you say, like Trump now is going to create a space force, isn't it? And it's going to belong to the navy. So is this not something like that, but in reverse? When they came from wherever, they called it the Admiralty Law, but really it's nothing to do with sea, it's more to do with space.
Yes, very good, Andrew. Very good. Excellent. Yes, Jordan Maxwell talks a lot about that stuff. If you want to learn on Admiralty and the law of the sea versus the law of the land, go listen to Jordan Maxwell. He's got excellent stuff on that. But I want to say Jordan Maxwell's old website has been hijacked, so don't necessarily buy into his old website. I can't remember what he calls himself, his new website. Just go into his new website, because the old guy has hijacked all his information and making money off all his old information. So if you want to support Jordan Maxwell, look at his new latest website. But Jordan Maxwell, to get back to your point, talks about the law of the sea and the law of the land. And you're right, it's not a physical sea that we're talking about. It goes into another dimension. Yes, you're right. So we've got the physical law of the land where we humans live. But then when you look at sea, Jordan Maxwell also describes the word human means sea monster. So you need to realize we actually come from somewhere else through the sea. And then when you look at it, we talk of the firmament in the Bible. What is this firmament? Well, that's water. So you start having a look how these things start coming down. So yes, that's very good of you to figure out that it's not a physical ocean, physical sea. Very good. Very good.
So I'll take that as a compliment.
No, if you elevated yourself, you impressed me. And the way that you've progressed in the time I've seen you, Andrew, the growth you've made is phenomenal. That's impressive.
Oh,
Anybody who makes progress, that's impressive.
I don't claim to know anything or everything, but what I'm doing is you're just joining me while I'm learning myself, and then I'm just sharing what I learn with you. And then if it's wrong, then someone can point it out to me and they tell me. But I like to think I'm getting a good grip on everything, and I understand quite a lot now, a lot more than I did 2 years ago or even a year ago.
Andrew, your videos have grown in subject, grown in content, grown in the dynamism, grown in the knowledge. It's unbelievable what you're coming out with now. And I think it's fabulous. And I know that you, as you say, you might be getting it from textbooks, but what's happening is it's causing you to think. That's that consciousness that you're elevating. That's the point.
Yeah.
It's not about making a perfect video. It's about, well, what's happening inside you? Are you growing in consciousness? That's the important thing. Yes.
Oh, brilliant.